Welcome back to the Atlantic Construction Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Arsenault. On today's episode, we have Brendan Wilton, President and CEO of Trim Landscaping. We'll be chatting about Brendan's entrepreneurial journey in starting Trim Landscaping, some of the milestone projects they've worked on, including Queen's Marque, Argyle Street, and many others, and the current progress at Peggy's Cove. Hope you enjoy. All right, welcome back to the Atlantic Construction Podcast. Today, I have with me Brendan Wilton from Trim Landscaping, co-owner with Matt Archibald. Brandon's former Queen's University student, commerce. Is that right?
That's right.
Thanks for being here, Brendan.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Just start with just kind of give us a background how things kind of transpired with Trim and you and Matt. And
yeah, sure.
It's a while back now, I think.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Well, I think you reached a milestone, did you? Is it 15 years?
We did, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So we started in 2006 with the usual motivations, basically out of high school, want to earn enough beer money so that when we go away to university, we can have some fun. And so it allowed us to set our own schedule, do our own thing, make a little bit extra cash. No real plan of making this into a long-term thing.
Right.
So then after 4 years, we're done university, and it's time for us to actually grow up a little bit. And we had this little business that we had started. Yeah. And so it was a perfect fit for us to start to actually grow that, take it seriously. I still have some fun with it, but actually treat it like a business rather than just a summer job that we made for ourselves. And then over the years, we've grown our services and grown what we want to get into and don't want to get into, and sort of figured out who we are as a company. Gone through brand transitions, buying other competitors, all kinds of different stuff over the years to get to where we are today. Yeah,
that's amazing. And so you guys predominantly started out in residential and then sort of slowly, was it a gradual entry into commercial? Because I know you guys are doing some like amazing large projects in the city here and elsewhere. But like before we get into that, was it like kind of a gradual process to get into some of the bigger stuff with?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely to grow some of those relationships, have the safety standards in place, sort of all the things that you need to do to become a commercial contractor. It takes quite a while. And so there's some actual barriers to entry in that side of the business. So yeah, we did a lot of residential work, a lot of mowing grass, a lot of planting plants, a lot of really basic stuff that we could do with very limited training. That was, and that is the natural progression in that business, right?
Yeah, it's amazing to go from starting out with, residential lawns and planting trees, and then 12 years later you're doing Argyle Street and Queen's Marque and projects like that. It's a long way.
It is, and for us it was starting to treat it like a business, right? Rather than our summer job or, just our regular day job. Treating it like a business and producing employees that do incredible work, that are specialized in great craftspeople in their exact trade. That makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's something that our listeners on Atlantic Construction Podcast, for those even in the industry or not, I think that one of the things about landscaping is the scope is so vast, and I just realized that in doing some research and chatting with you leading up to this. And you guys got masonry, concrete, carpentry, you're planting trees, there's turf, there's just such a vast amount of,
you'd be amazed what our customers ask us to do.
And anything else they would ask for unique to each project. So yeah, maybe just take us through that. What's your employee base, how many site workers and their backgrounds and sort of all the, the different skill sets.
Sure. Yeah. Just going back one step there, the residential market versus the commercial market is fairly different. But at the same time, there was not really a contractor that had that full service that we currently offer. So that was the big sort of strategy for us.
Right.
So having those specialty people in-house, and those individualized crews that do just strictly carpentry, that strictly plant plants, that strictly lay pavers, strictly build retaining walls, allows us to actually produce a quality product, but also provide these amazing outdoor spaces. And that's really where we have found our niche, where it's the whole outdoor space rather than just one piece of it.
Yeah.
So our current employee base is about 80 people. growing constantly. Shameless plug. We just started a fencing company too.
Nice.
So we'll be introducing chain link fence and ornamental fence and things like that.
Yeah. And that ties in well with your offering, like of the whole package.
Yeah, exactly. So there's other parts of the business that we contract out as well to just certain specialty people that we've brought in to add to our team. If we don't have big enough gear to do it, we'll contract it out to either one of our customers or a subcontractor that we have a relationship with, so that we can do that whole package for the customer, because the landscaping's gotten so complicated that there isn't one person that can just do it all.
Well, it's so complicated that they're creating new courses at Dalhousie where you can get a degree specific to landscape and horticulture.
That's right.
Right.
And that still only covers one small piece of it. Like, they're an expert in plants and plant material and growing stuff and organic things, but they might not be an expert in how to build a retaining wall and grades and compaction and all this other stuff that comes along with a full landscape project.
So it's almost like, as you guys started, like as you mentioned, 15 years ago, have you noticed it, like adjacent to like your journey, like the landscape industry sort of moving along and transforming and becoming just way more complex? And so you guys probably like came in at a good time when you started your growth. And
I think so. And we tried to at least work with some of the designers to help design more complicated projects. They're happy to now work with contractors like us and like others to develop these really cool, complicated projects for whether it's a commercial customer, municipality, residential customer, whatever, and try and challenge how cool of a project can be built, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
And we kind of just lucked into that, to be honest.
So you guys are sometimes involved in the design with the architect, like in those stages.
Definitely.
And that's not done in-house though. Or it could be, but it's not. Yeah.
No, we like to keep that separate.
Yeah.
We like to focus on construction, focus on building things, help people with their budgets, that type of stuff. And so that requires us to be involved a little bit on the design side, on the front end. And it's valuable for the customer as well.
Nice. So you mentioned 80 employees. So is that site workers? Like what about the office staff? Like for a landscaping company that size, like how's your office staff looking? What's the structure like? Estimators?
Yep. So one head estimator, and then help of myself that do mostly all of our construction estimating. Matt, my partner that you mentioned earlier, he does all of our service business. So estimating for our snow and ice removal, turf, grass maintenance, gardening, those recurring services where we're going back to the customer constantly. He takes care of the majority of that work there.
Nice. So is that a goal of your guys? Like when you get a client, you get a project, you want to like kind of carry that relationship through with the maintenance and
definitely.
Yeah, it works well that way.
Yeah, no, it's great that way. On the organic side, when you're planting plants and laying sod and things like that, the customer wants you to give them a guarantee. So they usually sign us up for at least a year to make sure that it's installed properly, it's going to grow, it's watered, it's cared for, and usually that relationship grows throughout that, and we continue to maintain it after the fact, which is great.
Nice.
And so the rest of our office staff would be controller, manage our finances. Right. I love buying pretty new things and lots of gear, as most guys do that have been in this world.
Gotta have the tools, man.
Yeah, you gotta have the toys. So he keeps us in line. Administrator at the front desk who fields most of the phone calls, helps out with our administration with commercial projects, the amount of administration and coordination and things like that. It's key role. Our fleet manager takes care of, we do all of our own fleet maintenance in-house, preventative maintenance and repairs and things like that. Yeah. So he works mainly in the office, but also out in the field, fixing all the gear, managing all the new equipment we're bringing in, all that sort of stuff.
So equipment's a pretty heavy side of things with the large commercial landscaping company like yours.
Certainly, yeah. Whether it's specialized equipment or even just, enough to be able to pick up a 5,000-pound pallet of paver stones.
Yeah, are you guys renting mostly, or is it you own some? You have a fleet of some stuff that you own, and then as things come up, you'll rent.
Yeah, we try and make sure that we have like 90% of our capacity covered with our own equipment.
Right.
Just makes the day-to-day jobs a lot easier. You don't have to depend on someone else.
Yeah.
And then as we get sort of over capacity into that other 10%, or sometimes even more than that, depending on how busy the year is, then we rent the equipment and some of the other specialized stuff. But
So who would you be renting from? Like just as a few names.
McFarland's pretty much exclusively.
Yeah. They've got that market cornered. Yeah, they're great supplier.
They're great people.
Yeah.
Graham, one of the owners, and Luke, very good friends of mine.
Yeah.
And Matt's, and their whole team treated us really well.
That's great. It's such an important part too, like for them to have those machines delivered on time, and then when you need them, where you need them, and like you get jobs like I'm sure you've had many in the past that are downtown, and sometimes just delivering equipment and material is one of the hardest parts of the project. You know,
it certainly can be. Yeah, and some of the projects like they require, like Argyle Street required some really specialized stuff. Like we bought the first paver layer. It's a vacuum that actually picks up pavers. So like you can pick up a 200-pound paver with one finger. And we were the first contractor in North America to buy one of those because of what that was spec'd on the street. You could lay it by hand, but you'd probably kill a couple people in the process.
Right.
So that's not safe. That's not cool.
What's it called again?
It's a Unilift. So we actually have two of them now. And they're an awesome product. Allow us to do some really cool, interesting stuff that most companies
So what
can't
was
do.
it about Argyle Street where you needed one of those as opposed to doing it by hand?
The pavers that were specified were just so big and thick to be able to be a roadway, to run a big dump truck down the road, full salt and a plow. Yeah. It needs to be able to withstand, all that super heavy traffic.
Yeah.
And then at the Queen's Marque, down here, just around the corner from us, some of the granite that was specified, like they're 5,000 pounds. They're huge.
And how big are the panels?
Oh, they're like half the size of this room.
So like they're 8 by 8 or so, 8 by 10, and they weigh that much.
Yeah, and they've got like perfectly chiseled corners. When you put them together, like you can't grab them with anything like a gravity clamp or anything like that. You have to vacuum them from the top. So we buy some more specialized equipment for these really crazy projects.
Is there transition strips between those panels? They go right next to each other?
Right, but tight to each other.
Yeah.
And if you're really interested, once the Queen's Marque's open, you'll be able to see
How thick are they?
Oh, they're like 4 feet thick. They're
my God.
Yeah.
So where are those located?
They're right going to be in the middle of the courtyard.
Oh, okay.
And when it's open, it's actually public space. You'll be able
on
to
the
walk
water
through
side.
On the water side. So as you've probably seen the big granite steps that come up out of the water, right as those transition, and there's a bench seat, and those are those big blocks of granite that came from Quebec.
Well, that's a pretty special project to be part of, I'm sure.
Oh, it was awesome.
You guys said you were there for about 18 months?
Yeah. That was a first.
What are some other memories or some other things that stand out from that, or some other neat products that you might have used there? Or I know you said you worked with Bird Construction on that, and it was like a pleasure. It was a really tough job to get materials to, obviously, right on the main street on Water Street and
like
stuff
one
like
of
that.
the biggest projects in Halifax, probably in Atlantic Canada at that time, and the smallest laydown area. There was nowhere to put anything. So there's a couple hundred people on that job site any given day. You've got the deliveries, which is one thing, and they had an awesome process, super easy to deal with, great the whole way
But you're
around.
competing with like tons of other trades for that space to lay your material for any given day.
Like when they want to do drywall, they basically take up the whole South Road with all their material to get it in for the day. Yeah. And there's a bunch of people inside figuring it all out.
And it's gone in like 2 days. And they need more.
Exactly. So that provided some like tricky management, and working really closely with the customer, who was awesome to work for. Like Armor Group, their whole team there was just wicked.
Yeah.
Bird Construction, same thing. Great to work with down there on a tricky site. And during COVID too, right? Like,
so did the pandemic happen while you're in process for that, or was it before you started?
We were like halfway through.
You were halfway through of your scope.
Yeah. And so they did a great job. Like, again, one of the bigger projects with a lot of people and a lot of coordination happening, trying to get people moved in early summer, late spring, and COVID hits. So they actually shut the job site down for a day, regroup, figure everything out.
And at that point, like, it's the level of uncertainty was
full peak.
Full peak.
Right at the top.
Yeah. Like, we don't know what's happening right now.
No, nothing. And then there were some other, there were some fun challenges, like the stories that you wouldn't hear. When we were building the South Road, we were digging down to put frost footings in for some of the walls and stuff where all the granite masonry is. Right. And the tide, we had to actually figure out the tides so that when we could actually pour concrete, because our hole would fill with water and then be gone. And we're not talking like right at the water. We're talking like at lower Water Street.
Right.
So like,
and that's like a couple 100 feet off the shoreline.
Yeah, like the tide goes in underneath Lower Water Street. And then you start talking to contractors about that. And there's so many other places like the Maple and some other excavations that were happening that actually had tide like 2 blocks in from. And you would never think of that. Well, I wouldn't anyway, because we don't normally do that much site work.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, man, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's easy for an estimator to miss that one.
Fortunately, it didn't have, and that would have been me that missed it. But fortunately, it didn't really have too much of a hindrance on production. There was so much other stuff to do.
Yeah,
We'd just wait till the water left and then go do our work. And our crew did a wicked job of planning that all out.
So how many feet on the ground for your company on a size project like that for landscaping? Like 10 or 20? Or 30?
Depending on the day, to be honest. We pretty much always had 2 managers down there. So one big portion of the scope was like laying pavers and hard landscape surfaces, and the other portion of the work was a lot of carpentry and specialized work, weird form work and concrete pouring and stuff like that. So they sort of split the division of the scope that way because it was big enough. Yeah. And then on average, I'd say we had about 10 people down there. Yeah. And on big days and big weeks, we'd probably have upwards of 20. Yeah.
So just to give people like an idea that are not familiar with landscaping, like take that project, for example, the Queen's Marque, and like your scope there is, granite, rough carpentry, concrete. So like what are some other materials that got used on that job, like for the landscaping scope, and just walk us through like a little bit about your scope and like how vast it is, all the different things that you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully most of the listeners know what I'm talking about when I sort of nerd out and start talking about all the different products.
Feel free to geek out as much as you need to.
But there's like the formwork side of things, really specialized stuff to build benches that were all covered in metal, and so you needed to figure that out and add lights to it and all that sort of stuff.
And is the metal in your contract too that's associated with that?
It might be.
Maybe not.
It's not installed yet.
Yeah.
But either way, whether it's in our contract or not, dealing with it and trying to figure out how everything's going to interact with itself with 3 other sub-trades that all have one thing coming together at one spot, that's tricky enough in and of itself. Half of the project that we did, or maybe even more actually, was all on a roof deck. So there's all kinds of waterproofing, and we're dealing with the drainage board and the insulation and laying sleepers and all this decking product, high grade marine decking products, like all that sort of stuff.
So you're doing the roof as well.
The waterproofing was all done, but we had to figure out how to operate on that. How do you form on top of a roof deck and pour all kinds of concrete in where you can't get a pump? Like it was tricky. So
the roof there is a concrete with the rubber roof. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, pretty standard roofing setup and membrane, but that's not something normally a landscaper would deal with, and really understand how to work around that. Yeah. So that was definitely a challenge. The rise again steps, that was pretty cool.
Those are neat.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, those are steps that are coming out of the water, right, on the backside.
No, we didn't do those.
Further up. Okay.
That was done by StressCon. That was very impressive. Whoever figured that out and did that.
Okay, I thought that's what you were getting at. I was like, geez, you did that. Wow.
I wish. That would be the equivalent of building granite countertops on toothpicks in the water.
In the ocean.
In the ocean, yeah.
Yeah.
It was super cool.
Piece of cake.
For someone, it might have been.
For somebody. And so what's the rise again steps?
The rise again steps are right beside that. It's like this big archway, not archway, but this sort of big wedge that comes out and goes right up and gives you a huge view of the entire waterfront. Yeah. And so that was all waterproofed and poured and whatnot. And then we had to figure out how to basically build it from the top down. So instead of building stairs from the bottom and working your way up, you had to build them from the top and work your way down. And so the difference in the grade and trying to figure that all out, and the construction method to do that was.
And was that concrete, the stairs?
They're all carpentry. They're like heavy timber.
Right.
Yeah. So working with bird and armor to try and figure that all out was pretty fun, and it's a big showpiece of the whole project.
Wow. I'm sure some of your carpenters were pretty proud of that one.
They are, and what's really cool about that project and the beer garden that we did that we can see here is that most times when you do residential projects, you never get to go visit them again, right? Like the guys and
Can't just
gals.
show up at someone's house.
Yeah, can't just.
Well, you
"Hey,
can, but
can I show my kids your pool? Daddy built this pool, or mommy planted this, or whatever. You know, you can't go do that. But with projects like this that are going to be public access, it's awesome for our employees. Like, it makes them really proud of the work that they've
100%.
done. They get to show it off to their families, which is really neat.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's such a showpiece project. You mentioned Argyle Street earlier. I think, did you mention you guys had some kind of a machine? What's the machine you use? I forget how to say it, but I want you to explain it because I think it's cool.
It is cool, and it's the way that the industry's going.
You're watching my hand right now. That's how you know what I'm talking about.
I think so. That's the way the industry's going, is these machine operated, machine controlled machines. So we rented this super specialized piece of equipment from SciTech that basically you put on the front of your Bobcat and it moves on its own based on the grade. So it sets the grade for the pavers in advance for us, and it's millimeter accuracy.
Right.
So you set up this. You ever seen the surveyor on the side of the road, and he's got that thing on a tripod that moves around?
The tripod, yeah.
Yeah, the robot. So that basically told the machine on the front of the skid steer what to do from afar.
Right.
Like, it
And
was
just self-levels the whole time it's moving, yeah.
instead of like having to do this super particular, really, and you'll never get it right, as the human error is not good enough. You basically set it and drive, grab your coffee, and it goes perfectly to grade. So
I love how you threw the coffee part in there.
Well, I was the guy doing it, so I was sitting there having my coffee, hanging out.
Yeah, it must have saved Trim some labor with that machine, I'm sure.
Definitely, like the quality control is amazing, right? Like, you don't need to go check it afterwards. Your surveyor doesn't have to come in and say, "Yeah, that's all good."
Yeah,
you know it's perfect.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other heavy civil contractors that are using specialized equipment like that for building highways and things like that. And it's the way the industry's going, and it's great.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
I'm curious, like when you guys, so you said you like for Argyle, you partnered with Dexter's on that one, right?
Dexter was a prime contractor.
Right.
They were the one with all the resources, the heavy equipment to do the whole project, and they hired us as a subcontractor to do that sort of specialized finish work with the pavers.
Right. And I'm just curious, like how many other landscaping companies you guys compete with on these major projects? Because I was checking out, now these might be interesting numbers to you, from ACOA, the NAICS numbers for the companies registered as landscaping companies in Halifax is 16, Nova Scotia is 165, Atlantic Canada is 367 landscaping companies registered. Now, some of those might just be residential, some of them might be new, and they're, they might have a 2 to 5 man crew.
Yeah.
But I only bring that up just because it's not like there's 20 other trim landscapings with 80 employees that can go and price these major jobs, right? So I'm just curious, like how competitive is the market and like who you're competing against, like for some of these.
For those types of projects, it's certainly not as competitive. Like, that is sort of our niche that we've built. The best way to explain it for those people that are in the industry is it's kind of too small for a civil contractor to take on, but it's also a little bit too big for standard landscaper. That's what we're into at Peggy's Cove right now. A general contractor could have done it, like one of our customers. So it's just like there's some of these weird projects that just don't quite fit.
I love how you put that too, because it's like you're a civil contractor in a way. I mean, you're almost there. Like it's in between.
It's kind of in between, and it provides for some pretty fun, cool, interesting projects, but we don't want to step on their toes. That's, we're not going to compete with them on their business of, really moving earth and dirt, laying asphalt, that kind of stuff. It's a totally different. So
you have a great, like that partnership with Dexter's is something that you guys carry forward and you kind of complement each other and you guys handle that.
It's nothing formalized, but everybody's found their spot in the market.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned the Peggy's Cove, so that's a current project, right, that you just started recently?
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
Tell us a little bit about that one.
Man, it's so awesome. So
you're having trouble getting through the granite there, you said.
We're through now. Well, we should be anyway. Probably by the end of the day today or first thing next week, and then we actually start drilling and doing some pretty cool. That's real heavy civil stuff, but we contracted all that out to specialists who are really good at that.
Right.
That was a really interesting project because half of it is like this super heavy industrial, like bridge building almost is probably like the closest thing you can get to it. And then the last bit of it is like super detailed finish work. It's like super detailed deck, these really cool stainless railings and lighting and photoluminescent strips and planting and all these miscellaneous metals. Like, it's really cool. But to build the structure to hold all that can withstand a potential 100-year hurricane that can come up and like knock this thing right out of the rocks, you have to build this really big, heavy structure.
So that's a big retaining wall around the perimeter, is it? Or
it's actually a big suspended concrete slab, so it's like literally like a bridge deck. So you like bolt it into the rocks, and then you pour this concrete that goes out into the middle of nowhere with nothing underneath of it, and then you build a deck on top of it.
Wow.
Pretty simple, right?
Yeah, sounds easy.
It's going to be fun.
Man, so you guys just started there, like what's like the schedule? Like you're going to be there for 8 months, a year? Before you're...
Yeah, who knows at this point? Like all the underground stuff, spring rate restrictions, all the stuff that we're battling, like it's hard to tell the final end of the schedule at this point, but we'd love to have it delivered just in case there's a tourist season in the fall. Like, it'd be huge for the Southwester, the restaurant that's down there, to be able to have that revenue, that tourist revenue. But like that's pretty short-term thinking in my opinion. Like having that done and having it done right, in the long term provides accessibility for, the aging population that's here to be able to go and view and visit and see the lighthouse and see it safely. Right. And I think that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool that you're part of that in such a big way, especially with your scope. And just for some context, like for our listeners, like who maybe aren't in the industry, but, obviously are really interested in Peggy's Cove. And so let's say for a timeline, like the government, the municipality might have came up with this plan for many years ago. And then you probably started bidding on it for your scope maybe a year ago.
Oh, I wish we did. We had like 3 weeks to put it together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's always how it happens.
Oh, yeah. It was a total surprise.
Got to rally.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think our team and I personally love that, like when it's a little chaotic and
challenging.
That's fun.
And that's when your experience shows up, right? Because if you don't have that experience and you're not, detailed in all the different parts of your scope, and that you're able to, you can make that happen. You can see the job happening from start to finish with all the different...
Experience is part of it, but process is a bigger part of it probably. Yeah. And sticking to that process and having that in place so that when the opportunity comes knocking, you've got a process in place so you can actually take advantage of it.
Right.
So with like that Peggy's Cove project, we were given probably about 3 weeks to decide, figure out if we want to bid it, how to bid it, how to put it together.
Who are you bidding it to?
Develop Nova Scotia.
Right.
And it's funded by a variety of different partners that have come together. Okay. And it's part of the province's overall accessibility plan to provide accessible spaces for the whole province.
Right. Obviously building decks is a big part of what you do. You've got some, I'm sure, amazing carpenters. Like some of the decks I've seen on your website are phenomenal. A lot of those are at houses, but you've built a deck just out the window here. Yeah. The big deck down at the brewery, right, on the waterfront. And
we've done quite a few. Don't do too many residential decks anymore. Okay. It just hasn't been really a fit for us. Yeah. The bigger, heavier stuff seems to be a little bit better fit for us, like the deck at Queen's Marque, the deck that we built for Legendary Hospitality at the Stubborn Goat Beer Garden. Yeah. That's a big one. And usually it's specialty products, like that one's on a metal frame. The Queen's Marque is on a rooftop.
What materials? Is it pressure treated lumber, or is there like Trex decking, different types of materials?
Any of that sort of stuff,
any of that stuff, right?
The composite decking is a great product. There's also some specialty hardwoods that would compete with that last a ton, like super long.
What kind of hardwoods are you seeing being spec'd for decks?
Our favorite, and the one that the designers should spec if they're listening, is Ipe. It's a great product. It's Brazilian hardwood. It lasts like forever, like 25 years plus. You can't even put a screw through it. It's so dense and hard. You have to pre-drill it.
Some of those exotic woods are like steel.
It's awesome. Yeah. So Fathom Studio, we did a project that they had designed over at Shannon Park. Big cantilever deck, all in Ipe, sort of fanned out. I can't remember how many saw blades we went through. It was like 100 a week, let's say. Yeah. Just trying to cut and rip all this stuff to fan the whole deck. And, it's in a hard spot to get to, but it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
Like literally forever.
Forever.
It's going to be such a great project for people to be able to access and go see Halifax and, go see the bridge from a cool, different perspective.
I'm trying to picture what's the species called again?
Ipe.
And it's Brazilian.
IPE.
And so what's it? Can you compare it to like the wood grain aesthetics? Is it similar to like oak or
probably
is it
mahogany? Actually,
mahogany. Okay.
It's like deep, dark, rich,
right?
But it does gray out
really
over
fine
time.
grain too, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, super smooth.
Yeah.
Like if you were to pick up a piece, you'd feel it. You wouldn't think it was a wood product.
And you expect to clear coat that stuff all the time on those decks, or
a lot of it you can just leave.
Just leave it as is, really,
because it's so dense. Like you can't even burn it. It would just smolder.
It won't even burn. Yeah.
And there's some other products that there's one out of New Brunswick called thermal wood, and they actually like bake it. So they put it in a kiln and they bake all the organics out of it. So again, will not rot. Ants can't get into it, like termites, all that sort of stuff. It's a really cool, great product.
Yeah, and the moisture level on these products is like 0.0, like
nothing.
0.01.
It's like dust. It's like compressed dust.
Yeah, it doesn't move.
No.
No, that's really neat. And what about lighting? Lighting seems to me like it must be a big part of the landscaping trade sometimes too.
It's definitely a big part on the residential side.
Okay.
We find that we get a lot more requests for it there, but on the commercial side, it's usually the lighting, the electrical contractor that's dealing with that.
So you don't cross into that usually on the commercial side.
Not usually.
Yeah.
Like we're contracting it out on the Peggy's Cove project as well. It's just so expansive. And we don't have electricians on staff. So if it's line voltage, we're not going to mess around with that and get someone killed.
But are you supplying some of the actual fixtures and stuff like in your contract? Like that's part of okay.
Yeah, exactly. So any LED stuff we'll do in-house. We have a couple of people trained that can set that up and do that and know enough about the products to help people through it. But usually it's spec'd by the designer anyway. Right. So we're just kind of following suit. But that can be a huge make or break on a project.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Most people are busy and they're not there until it's dark anyway. Put some lights in your landscaping. Yeah. It makes a difference.
Make it look good in the evening as well.
Well, and make it functional in the evening.
Yeah.
Something that you can actually use and see, and you get twice as much time out of the landscaping that you've invested in for like not that much more to put some lighting.
What do you guys have down here at the Stubborn Goat Beer Garden where you built the deck? There must be. Did you guys do all that lighting down there too? For the walkways and.
No, because that's all line voltage. So we let the electrician do that. Put a big pole in the middle, which is pretty cool. And they did all kinds of string lighting.
Oh, so right. So that's part of you there. Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. So we helped them with kind of the design of that. But they had most of the design done themselves, man. Like they're a really well-run organization. Like they make it happen.
Yeah, and that's good for you and the client. Like they know exactly what they want. Yeah. So sure, that's not always the case. And
no.
You have to do a lot of guessing and things like that. What else do you guys have like currently, like other than Peggy's Cove? Like, what are there some other big ones that you guys are working on right now, or is it kind of spread out with a lot of different things? Or
it's kind of spread out. It's like it's a little bit early in our season right now. Fingers crossed, we're hoping to be part of the Spring Garden Road project. They're going to do a revitalization similar to Argyle Street. Yeah. So we would love to be a part of that. That was tendered last week. So we're really looking forward to that project. By the time this airs, I think we'll actually know who the contractor is.
Oh, nice. So would that be like a straight bid, low cost, or will you be able to? Okay, right. So
and again, like Argyle Street, we will bid to any of the contractors that are going to take it on. Yeah. There's so much pipe. If they're bringing all the electrical underground, it's going to be amazing. Yeah. But it's too much scope for us to deal with. We have a lot of specialized people, but we don't have that many.
Right. Well, that's amazing. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
So your fingers crossed for that one.
Fingers crossed.
So for a project like that, like for you as an estimator, and obviously you have another estimator in the office, like what's that process like? That's a month or so of looking at that or more? Or?
If they gave us a month.
Often you don't have that long, right? But it's not, you got to have like a couple weeks to get that one sort of marinate in your head and then do all your different materials and labor.
Yeah. So fortunately, we've done one of these before, so we have a little bit of an idea of what it takes and how much time it's going to take us to do it. But there's a lot of other specialty products that we didn't see on Argyle Street or weren't as prevalent.
Right.
Some of the underground stuff that we'll have to deal with to get the trees to grow, called like tree vaults or soil cells.
Right.
They're basically like plastic that you plant the tree in and put soil in, and it provides a structure so you can bring the hard landscaping right up to the tree without it falling apart. If it was just soil, the hard landscaping would just fall, right?
Yeah.
The soil would just compact and, wouldn't look good. So that's something that we're going to have to work out. We've done quite a few of them over the last bit with Queen's Marque out on Lower Water Street.
It's pretty common on these downtown projects, right?
Becoming more
Soil's
common.
Just not,
Yeah, it provides the tree with a lot more soil so that it can put up bigger roots so that in an event of a storm or hurricane or things like that, the tree is much stronger and won't blow over. So it's a great product. They've been using it all across the northeastern United States and things like that.
I have a question. It might be silly, but if you're working on these downtown projects, and let's say, within the civil work as they're, digging the holes for these large buildings, if there was blasting involved, does that affect your work when it comes to your scope? Like, does it affect anything at all, or would you even know that they had blast?
If we were pouring concrete, it'd be a problem because the concrete would be jiggling and flying everywhere, and you wouldn't be able to finish it and get it all, nice and pretty. Yeah. But generally, no, not too big of an issue. Cool. I mean, it'll shake you and wake you up a little bit.
It'll wake you up if you don't hear the horn ring 3 seconds prior to the.
That's right.
To Bob pressing the button.
And like the other big project that's going to be amazing for the city and our sector of the industry will be the Cogswell interchange once that comes down.
100%. Yeah, that's getting a lot of attention right now.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah. So we're just started digging into the plans for that. It's a pre-qualified bid list of just a few bidders.
Okay.
Because it's so expansive. And there's 3 or 4 different parks with hard landscaping, soft landscaping. A lot of these soil cell spec is a great product, so they're trying to push it and use it as sort of their standard product for longevity of all the trees that they're investing in. And it's just going to totally change.
Sounds like you're busy on the estimating side.
Yeah, a couple more hours in the day would be nice.
Yeah, tell me about it, right? So, are you ever bidding against any central Canadian companies that would come this way to sort of take on your scope on some of this big stuff? Does that happen?
I haven't seen them.
Right.
Probably the most common thing would be like really specialized pool contractors. We don't actually bid against them.
Right.
They come down and do
some of your scope.
Yeah, do some pools and stuff that we end up working around. But COVID has really put a stop to that. Like we used to do a couple jobs in New Brunswick every year, and although we still could, I mean, there's more than enough work going on here in Halifax now. But previously we were looking at different spaces that we could go into. PEI is in a huge boom. I mean, you know that, being from the island. Yeah. But there's definitely, we thought there was opportunity, but it's definitely slowing things down because of the pandemic and crossing borders and things like that.
And so now that we're on that topic, what was that like, just sort of managing things as a landscaping company and, your materials and some of the specialty stuff that you guys, need to get in some of these contracts and stuff? I mean, I'm sure I think we all rallied and weathered the storm as contractors, and a lot of people did a great job with just, the speculating and the uncertainty and just kind of carried it through, just kind of staying solid. But there must have been lots of challenges I'm sure you could talk forever about.
Yeah, man, landscaping aside, just being a business owner, it was hard. There was the unknown that you had to deal with personally. On are people going to be safe? How are my parents going to fare? How are your grandparents going to fare? All those types of things that you're trying to deal with. And then, you've got your employees that are looking to you to lead them through this and keep them safe on the job site. So that was really, really tricky.
Even
as a business owner.
You got 20 employees and everyone's going to react differently in a time like that. I mean, everybody kind of takes their own opinion of how, and they have wife and children at home and not sure if they want to, at that time, what's it mean for me to go to work and come home? And so,
and different people are at different risks and things like that. And are they going to be supported by the government if they have to leave their work? 100%. And how do we keep them safe and change their duties? And it was a lot. And, our team responded unbelievably well to it, to be honest. Made the whole thing a lot easier for me and for Matt, just on the way that they were able to change and be trained on new processes and all that sort of stuff. It was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I think people's true character kind of shows up when you have something like that happen. It's amazing, some amazing stories out there, and obviously yourself being a business owner, just the stress is exponentially higher. And anything particular to landscaping, though, that you might say, during the pandemic, just as a landscaping company that might have been different from, the same thing that we're all subcontractors and contractors are dealing with?
What I want to say is I wish that we just laid sod because that's manufactured and made here. So, you were sort of alluding to
here in Nova Scotia?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's some great suppliers, Elmsdale Landscaping and Tasbo and some other suppliers of topsoil and sod that's all made here, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be cut, and in 24 hours it's got to be delivered on there. So we're not bringing it in from Ontario.
That's great.
There's a few products you can, but we don't really mess with that too much. So that's why I say it would have been nice, because lead times that would normally be 2 to 4 weeks for specialty products like a bike rack or a bench or something very simple that should be available.
Right, all this miscellaneous stuff for
They shut their production down. And so then what happened was production was shut down. There's no inventory. They're not building inventory for the upcoming season. So that was pavers and benches and retaining walls, all the stuff that's manufactured out of province. And so right after that, there's this whole DIY boom because everybody's stuck at home. I want to fix up this and that, whatever. Yeah. So demand goes through the roof, and there's no inventory available because all the production facilities got shut down due to COVID. So your 2 to 4 week lead time became 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And so all you can do is depend on your suppliers, that you've been a good customer and you've got a good relationship with them. You stuck with them through thick and thin.
Hope the GC understands
and then,
the lengthy lead time.
They did, though,
yeah,
honestly.
Of course, yeah. No, they were, in most cases, they were great.
Yeah, and it was throughout the whole industry with specialized stuff. So you just roll with the punches, to be honest. That's all you really could do. And,
that's awesome.
You know, and then the other part of it was that you had to build up your inventory. So it was, once you realize that lead times have doubled, you basically have to figure out where are you there's no just in time anymore.
Stock up as soon as you can get your
Start
hands
buying
on
stuff right now. And that puts this financial stress on your business. So it's just challenge after challenge, and like I said, roll with the punches.
How do you feel now currently, like with the situation of COVID and the vaccine and stuff like that is there, and like your company, just the way things are, like moving forward, is it in a good place, and that sort of really stressful period is behind you?
Definitely.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for us was, how do we keep our employees safe?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that COVID doesn't run rampant through our business? How do we make sure that we keep our subtrades safe that are close to us? Mm-hmm. All those types of, that whole sort of ecosystem that is trim. How do we keep everybody safe?
I think everyone's safety committee deserves a pat in the back for, I'm not just mean the generals and the owners and, Josh committees, but like subcontractors and
all the way through.
Everybody rallied so much. And
depending on them, that was a big key to success, getting through that whole thing. And then moving forward, there's just a lot less that's like unknown. Like the vaccine's great. I don't quite know what the impact of that's truly going to be, whether it's going to be great or not so much, and how well it's going to roll out and all that sort of stuff. But generally speaking, I would say that we're in a really good place, because the Josh committee that we have has been amazing. Our safety rep that manages all of our safety has been amazing. Yeah. And just the ability for that team to pivot and work on new stuff. Yeah. Like they're totally different than they were 12 months ago. Mm-hmm. Thanks to COVID. And I mean, truly, thankfully, and gratefully. Yeah. I think we're in a pretty good spot.
That's awesome, man.
Procurement still sucks, though.
Yeah. Man. Anything else we haven't mentioned that you kind of want to just get out there for, as far as, Trim Landscaping as a company, and just with the platform here that we didn't sort of touch on, or is anything kind of coming to mind? Or
no, I mean, like you guys did an awesome job of sort of telling the world about who we are and what we do. I was just excited to be here and sort of shoot the breeze with you and sort of chat about what's going on in construction generally. It's a pretty fun process. And I wasn't here just to market the business, but more talk about like what's going on in the industry. What changes are being made around town. Like, Halifax has gotten such a facelift over the past little bit, and it's freaking cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's exciting.
If you're thinking about it and you're not part of the industry right now, join it. It's pretty cool. There's a lot more opportunity than you think. It's not just, your regular blue collar type stuff. There's
so many angles.
Stuff. Yeah.
And I mean, like you and Matt, your story, resonates with a lot of people at a high school. You're just, doing something fun that you like to do in the summers, and then obviously you had to get serious about it, and then look where you guys are at today. I mean, that story is going to resonate with a lot of young people, like, that are thinking about getting into construction. And
I hope so. Yeah. I certainly hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, man. No, it's been great having you on. As you talk, like I can just tell your passion for the landscaping and construction. Like that's what we need on the show. It's all about the guests. It's all about you. And so, it means a lot to have you on. It's been amazing just to sit and chat with you about all of this. And where can people find Trim Landscaping online? You guys have a
we're all over the
website.
place.
You guys are all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So people are going to be able to, if
whether
they're
it's
wanting to hook
social media, just on Google.
up. Where's your head office?
We're in Harrodsfield, but we're moving.
Okay.
We're
Nice.
just building a new office. It's being built on Blue Water Road by Bird Construction. Awesome. Been a great process throughout the whole thing. Tilt-up building, pretty simple industrial style.
Yeah.
Just to give our employees some more resources and a little bit better support.
Yeah.
And be in a more central location for some of our other services that we didn't talk about today that depend on geographics, like snow removal, for example.
Okay.
Being a little bit closer to our office.
Has it been a busy winter for that?
Not really.
Not really.
We did have
Just
that
not a
one
lot.
big storm, right? Like
In that
50
was
centimeters.
Yeah,
That was a
so
monster.
That was a busy couple of weeks after that, and then it just fell off. Probably. Yeah, and so like a lot of your scope is seasonal in a sense, right?
In a sense, but not as much as it has been, right?
Yeah. I think there's that gap where a lot of even people outside the industry might think, well, construction, that's seasonal. It's not seasonal at all if you're commercial, but I might even think if I'm not familiar with landscaping, it sounds like that's really seasonal. But
I don't know, the way the weather's going these days and like the volatility of it and the way our winters are changing, like there's construction, like if you're an interior contractor, it just happens all the time.
Yeah.
If you're an exterior contractor like us, like we're laying pavers today on a roof deck in Brunello. So like our construction crews are still firing like full tilt. They haven't really stopped. We were building retaining walls. We were, last year.
Is that near the golf course or at the golf course?
Yeah. Right. The apartment building right by the golf course there. Yeah. Great spot. Beautiful. Oh my God. Wow. It's amazing. Yeah.
Nice, man.
Yeah. So it's not as seasonal as it used to be. Like when we started this business, it was basically like, and we're done for the season. We'll put the plows on the trucks, take a break. Yeah. We don't get that anymore.
Right.
Still a couple construction crews always going.
All the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Well,
it's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks a ton for coming on doing this. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah. We'll definitely have you back. Maybe make it an annual thing.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Appreciate
we'll get
it.
Matt out here next time. And
with how fast this is growing, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to get another spot.
I know.
You're going to have too many guests.
We're filling up with guests, but no, it's great when they're reaching out to us. Then I guess that means we're doing something right.
You are. This is really cool. I think the industry needed this. It needed sort of an outlet for like what's going on. So,
and I think, like you said, coming out of COVID, just being a little bit isolated, and it's a celebration of, all the skilled, passionate tradespeople like yourself that just do all the amazing work to build the Atlantic Canada. It's great.
Yeah. No, I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with this. So I'm happy to be here.
Thanks a lot, man. All right. Cheers.
Sweet.
Cool.